So I would like to welcome you all for our very last panel discussion of the 6th edition of Italian Design Icons Shanghai. And I have the very pleasure to introduce to you these two gentlemen on my side. So today, in this panel, we're going to discuss about healthcare. So some of you may wonder, how is healthcare related to the topic of Italian Design Icons? So as you know, this year we decided to focus especially on design and creativity for sure, but also on materials and performance. So I think especially these two keywords are, let's say, a major element for both of them. I would actually rather to have them introduce themselves. So Alberto, if you don't mind, you can start by presenting yourself, and then we start from there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gaia. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And it's a pleasure for me being here. This is actually my third time. The first time I was here with Luis University, which I'm an alumni together with Carlo and Andrea. And the other two times I was here representing Diasorin. I've been working for Diasorin for 10 years actually now. Started in finance, and currently I'm the corporate controller in charge of finance, supply chain, and also the industrial project leader in charge of setting up a manufacturing plant here in China, something that probably we can discuss further later.
Thank you very much, and welcome to join us. I mean, it's the third time, as you said, and it's always a big pleasure to have you with us. Now, Michele Bianchetti, welcome.
Thank you for the welcome. It's also my third time, but the first two times I was here just for the cocktail, so it's payback time. And I'm a site managing director of Copan Medical Shanghai, which is a company I opened in 2016 on behalf of a branch of a headquarters in Italy. And soon to be moved to Vietnam. I'm always proud to say that because it's a big achievement for the company as we located our first manufacturing site here in China, and the second one, thanks to the common effort of everybody, will be also in Vietnam. So here we go.
Yeah, I think we can also follow up from what you just said. If you would like to give a brief introduction of what is Copan, what is your team doing, especially here in China, the plans for Vietnam, and also if you want to mention, about the HQ and the story of Copan.
So, and this is the reason why we have been invited is that, yes, for a simple product that we do, which is swabs, which everybody is familiar with. We have several patents that we try to bring forward, and the patents are actually mainly for the design of such product that seems to be so simple to every one of you, but it's not. And whenever you try to experience talk up to your nose, you definitely didn't have Copan one. And, and the reason why is that we devoted a lot of time into the material of a stick of a swab, and into the shape of a tip of a swab, and many other patents that we have that ensure that whatever we take out from your nose or any other nostril, it's exactly what you have, and you don't end up with, when we pass the ball to this guy, which is going to tell you what he's going to do, you don't have a false positive or a false negative, like basically you pick up something that was actually not even existing. So here we do packaging, sterilization, and distribution mainly. Everything comes from headquarters from Italy. While in Vietnam, in 2023, it takes time because it's a big plant down there, we will do all the cycled products, and we will ship over here in China for the Chinese market. We finally got the license from an MPA.
Happy to hear that. Now, yeah, Alberto, if you want to give an introduction about Diasorin.
Sure. Thank you. So, as Michele said, actually, it's a full diagnostic cycle. After he's collected the sample with the swab, we take over. And the reason I say that is because Diasorin is a leading company in developing, manufacturing, and marketing diagnostic test. So basically, we take the sample, and in this case, it could be collected from a swab, or it can be a simple blood sample. And we give all sorts of results depending on what is the investigation that you're undergoing. We've been in China for 15 years now with a commercial with a trading company, but we are planning to open in January a manufacturing plant as well. And the company is present in 28 countries with 4 research and development centers around the world. We actually, sorry, allow me also to say, so we specialize in 2 sectors. One is immunodiagnostics and one is molecular diagnostics. The difference being that immunodiagnostics is the in vitro diagnostics that you get from blood samples, while the molecular diagnostic is the one that unfortunately everyone now is familiar with. It comes, as I said, from the swabs, and COVID test is unfortunately in the past 2 years, fortunately for the world, one of the best sellers.
I see. Okay, well, after this introduction, I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion, but I would like to start from the question that probably most of our audience is asking. So how are these 2 companies related to the healthcare industry interpreting the role of design? So is design playing any role when you develop your products or when you choose which product to bring to which market?
It's a fundamental component in a medical device company. Product design specification is a part of the licenses process, whether you're in China or worldwide, never mind. All the regulatory bodies in the world, they want to know why you come up as a company with a specific kind of product. In our case, the swab. So design is meant for the facilitation of the device itself to perform at its best possibilities and capabilities, whatever task it needs to perform. So of course we have a plethora of devices, namely swabs, that serves any kind of, literally any kind of place for your body, even for the armpit. We have a special one, not to mention, which is not a medical device, but still is our product, the one that are used for forensic. I'm pointing at my nail tips because it's something that we use to scrape out the DNA samples out of nails of victims sometimes. CSI, literally CSI was using our swabs because they look cool on TV as well. So,
really?
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah, here I see how the design plays its part. I mean, yes.
Yeah. Next one will be Bollywood in India. I don't know. Let's see what.
I mean, I guess big money is coming there too, so I hope that for you.
So definitely design. And design also, of course, goes into the decision of what material suits better. Some, the one that goes in the nose that nobody likes, are extremely bendable. And we had so many recalls because they were so bendable and breakable that kids in Japan or toddlers in Japan would end up with running away from a doctor with a part of the tips inside the nose. So nobody wants that. That's a recall, a big one. So we need to come up with polymers that you just basically you can wind them up like a fishing rod, and they never break. That is definitely part of research and development and design, because at the end of the day, the stick needs to be upright.
Right, so it's like a combination between design and still making it compliant and reliable for the use of the product.
Yeah, it's well hidden because it's just a pouch that you open and you put whatever you have to. Maybe sometimes in a rush, but we put a lot of art into it.
I can imagine.
It's really worth it, though, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I trust you on your word. And what about design for Diazorin? How does, what is the role of it for your company?
So I would say that in the development phase of the product, being a biochemical liquid, the exterior design is not so important as much as the performance and the functionality of the product. So the design starts in the R&D center, and the design of the product is eventually of paramount importance for its functionality and performance. And in this, the materials are extremely important. For some of our biochemical raw materials, there are only 6 countries in the world that are allowed to produce those materials. Unfortunately, Italy is not one of them. There are Australia, New Zealand, USA. But fundamentally speaking, the materials are crucial in the design and development phase, but the performance of the product is what makes the difference in a chemical in a chemical product. We do have actually also the mechanical instruments that are used to read the reagent, and we did prepare special editions with Pininfarina in Italy. I'm proud to say that actually in Australia there was a lab with red instruments signed by Pininfarina.
Okay.
So we do have a little bit of design, but the functionality and the performance is what really matters.
Then I'm just gonna, follow up on this word that you said, performance. So it's, one of the keywords of IDI, and of course, especially in a healthcare-related company, I do believe that performance might be, the real focus of what you do. And in this case, I would just be curious to understand, how do you evaluate performance? How do you define it within your products?
So for us, performance of the product. So we look at the stock price. Apart from jokes, the performance, fundamentally speaking, we look at it in three ways. It is important. Allow me to say to start with. It is important the performance to understand that when we talk about performance of our product, we are talking about lives. We do test for HIV. Giving a false positive for HIV may just scare someone. Giving a false negative of HIV means that you're telling someone that is actually positive that is not, and he can go around and spread the virus. So that is, being able to have the best performance and have zero tolerance for mistakes is of paramount importance. How do we evaluate the performance on a diagnostic test? We look at fundamentally three components. Specificity means we need to be able to identify the correct disease. Okay? We need sensitivity because it means that we need to identify the virus or the bacteria or the disease, whatever it is, at an early stage. There is no point to, being happy of having identified someone on a dead body. It's too late. We need to be able to identify it as early as possible. And then quantitative, we need to understand how advanced is the disease in the patient. So fundamentally with these three components, we evaluate whether the performance of our product is, I would say, supporting the society in a way.
Okay, so performance in this case, it's very different from what we heard so far in our previous panel discussions, where it was mostly related to, design, pieces of furniture. But here, I do understand, and I would like to highlight that this is a performance that, as you said, really impacts people. And from Copan's perspective, how would you define performance?
Performance is part of truly, it's part of a design. I don't want to be pleonastic here, but it is what it is. I'm just focusing on the swab for the sake of simplicity here.
Yes.
But performance comes when you have to collect a sample from a body, live possibly, and you need to make sure that not only you collect as much as possible as quick as possible for the safety and the comfort of the patient, but also that when you give the sample I collected to these guys, my swabs is able to release almost 100% of everything it got before. We have a big patent all around the world, which is the flock swab. And basically, before it was winded up. Imagine a Q-tip everybody has at home. Look at it, it's just like a fiber all winded up. And that it was before. This is how they use, and we do, to collect samples. But in all this winding, mechanically, everything you collect, it's stuck to it. It's really sawn into. Then with the flocking, it's the same thing that you use for, the thing for hanging clothes. And sometimes on the shoulder here, not to make the jacket drop. Have this kind of very fine graying. That's the thing we put on top of our swabs, and which is magnetic with a little bit of glue. So if you look at the microscope very closely, you see that all the fibers are not winded, but just stuck and divided one to each other. So that it's very simple to collect the sample and to release it, mostly important. So this is, well, it's not really designed because it's a bit casually how they get into, but we're good at providing consistency in that.
I would like to continue. You just mentioned you have this big patent worldwide, and I would like to switch the focus a little bit more towards the Chinese market. So more specifically, as you said, you just got a new license, and you're soon to, I hope, expand your business also here in China. And I would like to understand from your perspective, how do you feel Chinese consumers and potential customers being related to your product? So if they do care about quality, if they do care about design, performance, and also if there is any special attention relating to Made in Italy, so to an Italian healthcare company in the Chinese market.
Although the company set up is from 2016, we are present in China since 2011, and our product is very well known. If you look on Taobao, there's a lot of fake products already. Really, they're using our brand to promote themselves, which is a very good sign, actually. Very well known. So what we did was, of course, enforcing the patent in a way that, especially during the pandemic time, we could really not afford by any chance to fulfill requests. So we gave out, I don't know how to call them, but licenses, like Chinese company to pay us a royalty fee, and then whatever they wanted to, also in the US. Was very needed. We couldn't force everybody to buy us. It would be a story. For what concerns what I created here, we are moving from a very solid point, which is the brand awareness, which there is. Of course, as anything in the world comes with a premium price of what we're talking about, peanuts, swap. But when you buy millions every month, of course,
it makes a difference.
So there are the Center of Disease Control in China, for example, or private cleaning, for example, like the one next to my home already buys from us, which I didn't know the price. And there are people willing, of course, not just people, but professionals from the world, but they do understand the difference of, this is where you start. You scrap already there, and all your equipment of millions of euros is really worthless. Like half of a UN more, it can save a lot of time and money.
I can only imagine. But, and yeah, also for Diazorin, I mean, your company has a global presence, and I would like to understand if you see any difference on the kind of criteria and factors that the Chinese consumers take more into consideration compared to the other markets where you operate.
I would say yes, and bring probably a couple of examples. The first one is that our leading set of product portfolio that we are most successful in China with is the Torch panel, which is the one related to prenatal screening, because clearly everyone knows that the attention that the Chinese market and the Chinese families are giving to the well-being of their kids is probably one of the highest in the world. So the prenatal screening is the one that is fundamentally the most important for the Chinese market, and that's where the Chinese market is actually paying a lot of attention on the performance of the product, the quality of the product, and not the price, because you can afford to have a mistake in your vitamin C level. If I tell you that your vitamin C level is 25 or 75, it's not going to make a difference for you. If you are positive or negative on toxoplasmosis while being pregnant, that will make a big difference. So that's where the focus of the Chinese market is. For what is our approach, probably the best example is on the thyroid products. Because in China, I was reading with the colleagues in marketing, there are over 200 million people with thyroid-related diseases, hyperthyroidism, and that can come from any sort of reason, and also they can create lifelong problems, and sometimes they need lifelong treatment. The problem being that the Italian reference range for thyroid values is totally different from China. That's because of geography, population, the eating habits. So what could be a value that for you is a normal value for your thyroid, it could be extremely dangerous for a Chinese person of your age. So what we have to do, we have to readjust our protocols, our clinical studies, and adjust the product in order to fit the market. That's because, again, when we go back to designing the product, we need to consider that every human body is different. And in different racial groups, there are different characteristics that make them unique in a way. Yeah. So we need to design our product in order to make sure that it works everywhere in the world. And in the Chinese market, we had to redesign the thyroid products, design the protocols, redesign the clinical studies in order to make sure that we're fitting the population.
I see. And then, I mean, now it comes natural to me to wonder if also for Copan is, happening the same thing. So do you have any experience in readjusting or deciding to launch some specific products in the Chinese market compared to the other markets where you operate internationally?
Well, so far, no. Talking about swabs, a nose is a nose, no matter the shape. But no, but whatever. Like nostrils are nostrils. What we will do, and it will take some time because first we had to have in place all the licensing. This would be a plea to regulatory bodies here in China if they are hearing us. Ease up. It's really tough. Really tough to register something new. It's when we came at the NMPA doors, we're not gonna say who's there. It's COP, and we want to register 10 different kind of swabs. They looked at us, it's impossible. But we never had like a registration with so many products inside. And it's like the same kind of swab, just a bit longer or shorter or a bit twisted, let's say. So it's very difficult to adjust for medical devices. It takes a lot of time, not just research, but then time to be in compliance with local governance bodies. But what we will do after Vietnam will take place, because yes, we do the swab, but then we do the media for transporting the swab, because you just can't bring it open air to these guys over here or in his pouch, but you need to put into a tube. The tube is filled with a media, and the media will help to transfer the tip of your swab to the laboratory. So that can be designed in order to reach for the most fastidious disease in Asia. But that requires people with extensive knowledge working together with hospitals, working together with universities. So first of all, you need to be reliable. So hence the license. And the license opens up the world here in Asia, in China especially. I mean, everywhere else in the world, but everywhere else in the world, you just start producing, and then maybe they come to inspect you. Here they were made much more thorough. And honestly, super professional. I have nothing to say about it. It's kicking ass, but they are just great, really.
And now, I would like to stay with you for a point that you raised earlier. So, I mean, you said you can see on Taobao that many other companies are copying your products. And I was wondering, like, to what extent do you believe that this also comes from you being a so-called Italian icon? So for, made in Italy design, like, to what extent do you think that this Italian identity of Copan may play a role in the success of the company worldwide and especially in China, if any?
Yes, and these, not necessarily Italian, I might say, because honestly, it's not that the design makes a whole lot of difference. It's not like Maserati, Ferrari, or BYD. It's as well. It doesn't make a lot of difference. But what makes a lot of difference is the trust that Chinese people put in their own medical devices or pharmaceutical products.
Right.
This is why we still prefer, a significant slice of people still prefers to buy from medical devices from abroad or and so forth. And this is why the regulatory bodies like an MPA are proving very hard to make sure that everybody is in compliance, because they want and they course, rightly so. We have to take pride into making a very fine, top of performances-wise, state-of-the-art medical devices made in China. But so, of course, there are people willing to pay more because they think it's safer. Little they know that in order to be in compliance with an MPA, my facility here is way better than the facility in Italy. Okay. We have to be in compliance with something that in Italy or around the world is like absolutely overseen. Okay. In terms of GMP, good manufacturing practices. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that we do silly things in Italy, but we're Italian. You know?
I feel like then is your HQ, for example, taking these best practices as an example? Like, do you think that, these kind of lessons that you're learning, if you allow me to say, here in China, are going to also expand? Because, we also talk about China kind of taking inspiration from abroad for their own products and processes here. Do you see also the, reverse process, like from China to abroad?
Since we are amongst friends, I'm going to be really honest. They told me, no way.
Okay.
No, it's very burdensome. It's very expensive if we're done in Italy. And this is the reason why we stay little here. We can't afford, for what we produce, to be in compliance with everything for 15,000 square meters, let's say. It's crazy. You have to be like them. You have to buy out companies for $1.8 million, and then you can definitely afford to expand a bit more. But we are still a family-owned company. And so, literally, I not only all the mess and stuff, I only have to create a double, it's called SOPs, and standard manual, quality manual. It's one coming from Italy for the TUV, and one coming from China. It wasn't just translating, it was making a new one. So this is also why I was coming to you, yes, next week we're going to have a license, next month we're going to never-ending process, but we got it.
And I mean, these made in Italy, made in Italy is often associated with luxury, with fashion, with F&B, with these more, let's say, mainstream industries. But also for you in Diazorin, like, does this play any impact in the success of your company, the Made in Italy?
I would say that it helps as a starting point, knowing that in Italy the quality, the attention to details and the quality and the attention to quality that we put in our products creates in the back of the mind of the Chinese consumers an expectation that our product has a better quality, better design from a performance perspective. So it does help. As Michele was saying, it is also true that local companies, although they've been catching up very fast, for many years they've used shortcuts in their design and production and manufacturing of diagnostic kits. Something you can take a shortcut in producing a sofa. The quality is not going to be as good as the Italian one, but some people are willing to pay a little bit less and to accept the lower quality. And unfortunately, this is something that simply cannot be acceptable in the healthcare industry. Certain standards should be met no matter what. So local competitors have been, unfortunately, for many years taking shortcuts, and that caused the local regulatory authorities to taking basically all the toughest rules around the world, combining in just in one regulatory framework to say basically everything has to be done to perfection. Up to a level, and I do agree with Michele, the level of the manufacturing plant that we will be opening next year will be the highest level in terms of quality and production among the 3 manufacturing plants that we have in Europe, the 8 manufacturing plants that we have in the US, probably the highest in terms of classification even, is going to be here in Shanghai. So there is a certain expectation, being Italian, being foreigner, being recognized as a company that's supposed to bring high quality products. And this expectation is not only something that the government is the market is expecting for us to bring to China, but also is an expectation that the government and the regulatory bodies expect us to maintain when producing and when doing things here in China.
Okay. This kind of brings me to the next question, because we're talking about local competitors, and I do believe for a foreign company, especially within the healthcare industry, you have to, as Michele was saying, grow your brand awareness. So I was wondering, for each one of your companies, how is the different approach to the kind of budget and investment that you dedicate to research and development on one side and then to marketing on the other side?
So around the world, we have, I probably mentioned it before, we have 4 research and development centers, 2 in Italy and 2 in the US. And we will be opening in 2023 the R&D center here in Shanghai. More than 10% of the global workforce is in R&D, so over 10% of our headcount and more than 10% of our total spending is in research and development. Okay. I don't have the data for all the local competitors, but I know that their percentage is lower, while they spend a lot more in terms of getting their footprint in China growing. So they invest a lot more in establishing relationship with all the hospitals. Relationship is still big, even in the healthcare industry. So marketing expenses, to presence to conferences. They've got now the biggest booth at any conference. We sometimes don't even go to a conference because for us it is not important for people to know our name. It doesn't matter if you know the name of the company that gave you the result, as long as we are giving you the right result.
Okay, I mean, I'm a marketing person, so this kind of touches, my industry and my role. But I was wondering why. I mean, yes, it's true that if you bring the result, then it's still a success. But don't you think that probably because, especially you're a foreign company here in China, that investing more in marketing would also help you have even more results, more successes?
We do invest in what we call scientific affairs and scientific marketing. And what that means is that basically what we do is we do comparison studies. So what we do, we take a blood sample, then we take all our competitors, we take our reagent, the reagent of all our competitors, and we demonstrate that our result is better than all other competitors. So they have to run the test 2, 3, 4 times before getting to the exact same result that we get after the first time. And this is the type of investment that we do. So we spend in demonstrating to the physicians, to the doctors, to the hospitals that our products are better. And this is how we can convince the people that the way we design and the performance of our product is superior. Then we do not go and invest in getting the end user, which is the patient, to know the result, as long as their doctors are confident about the result.
I see. Now, I mean, with Copa, I'm a bit more familiar with the marketing approach, but I'm still wondering, especially, for the upcoming years. So with the new projects that are coming in, with China licenses finally coming in, compared, still to the research and development budget and within the marketing initiatives that you want to do, how is your company approaching it? And also, if you see any difference within your China business and Italy business within R&D and marketing, so how you're managing it from a really budget perspective.
Well, here in China, frankly speaking, we didn't have to take care too much of marketing until very recently. And the reason why is that we didn't have any license. So
that's why starting from here, from now on.
Starting from here, the marketing, which will run online most of the time, because we really don't know when this exhibition will be worth visiting. If there's no people coming from abroad, from Asia Pacific region, it doesn't make much sense to spend all those money into it. And so we'll keep on running online for 2022, 2023, supposedly. And this is very proficient because of WeChat, honestly. It's a great tool, it's a great device, and we do already have, as I told you, first big step entering the market 12 years ago. So everybody knows us. Why not using that as an edge? It will be, we already found our substitute, which actually comes from this company. Yeah,
Okay.
yes. And so that he will be in charge not only of selling, but promoting, and exactly the same procedures that they do. You go to a clinic, you do scientific studies, you promote them, and you try to explain. Also because when you approach a new customer, let's say, you go to a laboratory and say, try my swab, it's like, it's not like that simple. Because I'm used to do something else here. So what is the catch in using your swab? And I'm making it very simple for the sake of simplicity. Because my swab does this and that and that. Right? So, okay, it's not, first, I have to finish all my previous stocks of swab that I bought. Second, I have to make sure that what you're saying is true. So it goes through a long routine of samples and practices and experimentations. And then, eventually, after 6, 7, 8 months, you need to endure through it. You say, oh, okay, can I have one just to try it out for free? And it's really hard. But then when you're into it, for example, now our main customer is BD, Suzhou, because they're delivering everything back to the USA. Okay. Soon might also be Roche, always Suzhou, same thing, delivering everything to US. But in order to get to them, it's HQ.
Okay.
It's impossible for us. Need to be very corporate level. This is how you move big volumes as well. China is us, 20 people, few on the field, lean, quick, definitely more aggressive, and quicker. It's like a totally different combination, but it's not given by the situation of the market. It's given by the decision of headquarters to keep it as, let's say, lean, for a lack of better words.
I see. But what comes to my mind is, same as we were discussing a couple of questions ago. So there are the local competitors, they're investing a lot in brand awareness, a lot in marketing. So don't you also think that for Copan, investing more in marketing, communication, making your name even stronger? Because you've been here for a decade or so. Chinese competitors might have been the same. So what is the reason why you're not investing more just to also keep up with the local competition? What is the reasoning behind that?
Give us some time.
But it's in the plan.
Yes, it is in the plan, of course.
Okay.
We started from survival mode. Let's see what happens when we land here. To okay, we can make some profits. We do have margins, even selling at Chinese prices. We're talking about a commodity here. We're not talking about big machines that sells for millions of euros. So it's the plan. Honestly, it's totally not really my business to know the percentages of how much is going to be devoted to it.
Yeah.
But it's part of the business. It's growing in. But also, being a commodity is not something that you go on the subway and you see Copan branded. Yes. It has its own channels.
More targeted.
It's very, very targeted because it's very expensive. It's very lengthy. So everything is focused on that and then single few targets. There's a lot of research at the beginning. It's not mass communication. Forget about it. It's not B2B. It's not B2C.
B2C.
I'm not even familiar with
B2B. Strictly B2B.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have a question for Alberto. So in the previous panel, there was a question being asked about government policies. So how the government is kind of strongly promoting, for example, now a third child, or how is, the government trying to cope with an aging population. So my question for you is, does this have any sort of impact on your business, on your product categories? And if yes, how is your company also adapting to this?
Thank you. That's Very interesting question. I think there are three components. So there are government policies that are related to procurement or in the healthcare industry. You mentioned the three-child policy and aging population. So I'll try one by one. In terms of general government policies, the government is basically trying to nationalize the procurement as much as possible. There is a plan to have 70% of the hospital's procurement coming from products made in China. And that is the strategic reason why we are moving part of the production to China, to be closer to the local market, to make sure that we can comply with the government policies, to make sure that our products are produced and sold in the market like in line with the expectation of the Chinese government. So it is definitely impacting the industry because Michele mentioned Roche, who opened, I think last year they got the license. We are expecting in next year BD in Suzhou, Abbott, Siemens. Those are big pharmaceutical and diagnostic companies, and they're all transferring production into China. Okay. And that is part of, on one side, I would say, to be closer to this huge market, but part of it is also because the government policies, they are calling for international company to produce in the market. And the second one, the third child policy, as I was saying before, we have basically 26% of the market for prenatal screening, which, okay, considering we are a very small Italian company in a very big country, is a lot. So we are, by market share, the first one in the prenatal screening.
Congratulations for this.
Thank you. On the other side, the third child policy is just a way that the government has to try and fight the reduction in newborn babies. Right. So in 2020, if I remember correctly, there were minus 25% newborn compared to the previous year. In 2021 is minus 17 up until June or September. I cannot remember which quarter I was reading. So we are double-digit negative. The reason why the government is issuing these new policies is because they need to cope with an aging population, which brings me to the other point. Chinese population is aging, and is aging very fast. And this creates an opportunity for healthcare companies, but a big challenge for the society. Basically, to connect the dots, even if we are market leaders in prenatal screening, we are selling less and less every year because there are less newborn. We have a very small market share in tumor markers, but because the Chinese population is aging, our tumor markers, so to basically screen the population if someone has cancer, is growing more than 20% year on year. So this is unfortunate, the result of an aging population, that the rate of diseases is increasing, and at the same time is bringing the government to having, it's like a dog biting his tail, because now they need to find ways to reduce the cost of the healthcare, because the entire population is needing more and more and more support from the healthcare perspective.
Right. And for you, Michele, for Copan, do these government policies have any kind of impact on your business line of products, categories, upcoming projects? Is it something that is affecting your company in any way so far?
It's the same reason why on a way bigger scale, Roche, Abbott, big guys came to China, we also had to. And it resonates a lot because, as I was saying, here, both of us had to comply with an MPA, which is a way more stricter rule. So it makes a lot of sense. If I were Chinese, I would also say, no, you guys come in here to produce so we can control you, but not obsessively. Like, we want to make sure that you are in compliance with what we consider to be an acceptable level of whatever. Mm-hmm. And why not? Fair enough. And this is the reason why we go to Vietnam. So we are being nudged to come to China, but then we found out that it's a bit is too much consuming, really. especially now, they came to us, an MPA, and they said, since you produce product for COVID, we might come and audit, which is an on-site inspection that lasts 1 day every 3 months.
If I may, there is a huge entry barrier. And on what Michele said last week, and for small companies, it is hard to survive. And I do understand the decision they took with Vietnam. Last week, during a meeting with a government body, they requested us to make a small change in our production process. For us, that means a couple of million euro additional cost per year. And when you have that kind of request and that kind of expectation being made in Italy, we need to have the highest standard, knowing that also the local competitors, they do not keep up with those standards. It is creating a barrier. It is creating a huge expense for the organization. For us, we decide to continue investing to bear these huge expenses because we believe in the future of the market. But I do understand that it's basically creating an entry barrier for which only companies at a certain size with a certain market share are able to survive and to compete, even if they're bringing products that have, on average, a better quality than others.
For my last round of question, I'm gonna just connect to what you just said. So we're talking about market entry barriers, we're talking about smaller companies, market share. I'm wondering, because both your companies have been operating in China for more than a decade, both, right? How easy or how difficult, I believe rather, is it for a healthcare related company accessing the Chinese market today? So coming in today for the first time and trying to set up their company, their processes in China, and also if you may give some insights on what you believe is going to be the trend in the healthcare industry within the next 5 years for the China market, since you said you strongly believe in the power of the Chinese market. So I would be interested in hearing that from you, and then from Michele to conclude. Good luck with this question.
No, it's the second one that worries me.
I know.
The entry barrier, so whether it is easy or not to enter the market now, I'm happy to answer. What is going to be the outlook of the Chinese market in the next 5 years? Even 2 years ago, I would have given the wrong answer, so I'm not probably the best person but I'll try. So how easy it is now for an Italian company to enter the healthcare industry without having had already a presence in China, I would say close to impossible. Okay. And the major barrier is actually not capital, is regulatory. So you could have as much money as you want. It will take, I would say, Miki, if you agree, not less than 3 years, at least, with investments, and I'm talking about investments in the range of over 50 million euro. But it will take at least 3 years to being able to bring production to China if you decide to start today. It would take at least 4 or 5 to have license for selling products in China if you never had a license before. And that has materially changed in the past 5 years. So when both companies entered the market, it was 2006 for Diasorin, it was much, much easier. The market was different, and it was less strict from a regulatory and capital perspective to enter the market. So to the first question, I would say close to impossible. And what is the outlook? The outlook, I would say that there would be a growth of the market in the upper single digit, 8 to 9% in the next 5 years, which is considering the mature markets like Europe and US is 3 times what happens in those markets that are basically flat. So there is going to be a huge growth. But what is going to change? I think the shape of the market is going to fundamentally change. 5 years ago, Chinese companies were 20 years behind in terms of product quality. Today, they are 5 years behind. So in only 5 years, they were able to actually catch up a lot in terms of product development. And they do that at a speed that 5 years from now, it will be very hard to being able to say that Italian company has a competitive advantage in terms of quality compared to not being Italian or not being any other from any other part of the world. So from 5 years from now, I would say that Italian companies in the healthcare industry may lose the competitive advantage in terms of product performance if the Chinese companies keep growing at the pace that they're growing now.
Thank you. Michele, if you want to conclude.
Well, yes, I agree. It's nearly impossible nowadays. I've seen, I took a toll of me, like I always say, with 1 year in China is equal to 7 years in the real world, but business-wise, I had a baby. My white hair already grew up before she was even born. It has nothing to do with her. And I was here in 2016, where though much of the regulatory changes already kind of happened. For an MPA, a turning point was the scandal of baby formula made in China. So this is when they started really digging into it. And it is a massive effort that they did, and it's paying off. Because nowadays, honestly, you don't see anything like this anymore. And on the other side, as you were correctly pointing out, the competitors do have picked up. Though, of course, it's not my business here to give any number. I'm a man of action, let's say. So what I'd say in terms of action is that one thing is trailing behind and catching up, which is very quick to do. We, as a foreigner or whatever, especially Italian, which were very fantasiosi, like we use a lot.
Creative.
No, fantasiosi.
Using a lot of fantasy.
We have a lot of ruse as well. Like, it's keep on having that edge, like finding out new ways, not just to sell, but finding out, making people keep on trailing behind. That is just, it's like a few days ago I was reading a speech of Elon Musk. Like, he never has patents because he doesn't believe in patents. You end up having a suit. And who's going to make money out of suits? Lawyers. So he says there's no patents. And I keep on innovating. And this is my moat, like the way I keep my business. So few questions before was like, yeah, the swab is swab, and then we can focus on fastidious disease here in China. And we might be the first one. Somebody else will come and we will invent something else. Like, this is the real competitive advantage of coming from a city like Italy, where you really need to look after yourself and, you know.
So innovation made in Italy.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you both very much for this conversation. I found it very interesting, despite not being from the healthcare industry. So thank you for making it easier for all of us to follow you. And now I open the floor for questions, if there is any.
Microphone is good. Thank you, speakers, and of course, moderator, for this panel discussion. I was curious, both of you mentioned the China speed and the fact that products produced in China now in the next 5 years will be maybe more ahead of, we'll say, the products that foreign companies are producing. I was curious, maybe Michele can also outline how is this going to affect foreign companies moving forward? You mentioned innovation, and for Michele, you're moving to Vietnam. So just like to know, from moving forward with your company in Vietnam, how the Vietnamese market is for innovation, and I guess just to have an idea of the future for foreign companies, maybe in China, but also Asia. Thank you.
Well, we found in Vietnam, luckily enough, without moving from Shanghai, and it was a very concerted effort. So thanks to Andrea leaving his offices in in Vietnam. I'm using part of your company for that. And we struck into a plot of land, to come to your question, which is a high-tech park. And the high-tech park gives you a lot of incentives, tax-wise and cost of land-wise, as long as you invest for example, one of the criteria is 1% of your total revenues per year in research and development, which is peanuts, that I know that we spend much more than that. But again, one of the reasons why I convinced the headquarters, because Vietnam, we moved there, but it's not just for Vietnam, it's for the whole Asia Pacific. Because we not just need to shorten after the outbreak of COVID, of supply chain, everybody knows that, is that there are disease, even disease are geopolitical, like not everything is the same. When I came to China the first years, I was always sick. Why? Because it's a different microbiome. So imagining Southeast Asia, Australia, big island like Australia itself, and New Zealand, very different diseases and microbiomes. So we need to develop with local scientists different possibilities to improve our products and the collection device market. That's what we have to do. Relying always on the market where we go to. Here in China, everybody will be Chinese after I leave. We strongly believe in that too. That needs to be run by local people, for not just for innovation, but for a plethora of other reasons as well.
When you were talking about innovation, I was thinking the same. The only way we can survive is bringing to the market products that the local competitors have not even thought of. We've been the second company in the world to develop the Zika virus in the test for the Zika virus in 2016. We were among the top 5 to develop the COVID test. We had launched a product, I still remember, 20th of March 2020. We had the COVID test when the first outbreak was basically, it was in December, but it was discovered in, I would say, 26th of January, end of January. By the 17th of March, the product was ready. By the 20th of March 2020, the product was released. It took for the vaccine almost 2 years of development. It took us 2 months. So we need to be fast, and we also need to find ways of not only bringing new products, but hopefully there's not going to be new diseases. I'm not hoping to be innovative with new diseases. We're just hoping to develop products locally that better suit the market.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Just to put among brackets, so the healthcare, the Italian healthcare is among the top in the world, right? I was told that we are following only the US one, but the big difference that we have a public healthcare system, while in US is all run and owned by insurance. Let me like this. So, on the leading point of view, we heard about all this problem that we have in China, but we also heard how it's important to be in China. We heard how it's important to invest in this market and how the Chinese are arriving to biting us and even to try to take our leading role. As a representative of a leading company, this important sector for Italy, for Europe, for the world, which one is the way to keep the leadership? Is it only question of money? I don't think so. Please tell me it's not only question of money.
It is
Which,
not.
by the way, you have plenty because you got the COVID test in 2 months and the stock market like, wow, I'm happy, I'm an happy investor.
Let's be honest, we are a very small company. At least I represent a very small company. And if it was a matter of money, we would be out of business because there are plenty of local competitors that have an enormous amount of money and investment backing them up. So it is not a matter of money. It is a matter of innovation. It is a matter of, before I was mentioning the 3 criteria that we use to measure a product, and sensitivity, specificity. To give you an example, our COVID test is precise at 99.7%. The other products are probably between 60 to 80% local products. So what does it mean? It means that, you know, the 80-20 rules. The 80-20 rules, it takes 20% of effort to achieve the first 80% of result, but it takes 80% to fill the gap up to 100. And that's where I think the competitive advantage will continue to play an important role. Being innovative and being able to have always the edge in terms of products, but also in terms of service, is something that it will not be easy for local companies to catch up. And when I talk about services, because I don't want to give away the future strategy of the company, but what we need to look into is not only to sell a chemical reagent, but to sell a result of a patient. What I mean is, we need to also be able, as a company, to accompany the doctor and explaining what to do with the result. Because if I tell you that you're positive with COVID, it's easy. You know what you have to do. But if we tell you that you have a certain value of thyroid disease, then there will be all sorts of treatment, lifelong treatment, that you may have to endeavor. So our experience is being able to support also the physicians in taking the result, which is a number. Fundamentally speaking, it's just a number, and how to interpret this number for the best interest of the patient, so guiding the entire cure, allow me to say. So how do we compete? We compete by not only selling a product, but selling a product and a service. And the service is where, as Italian company, we are more customer oriented. We don't only want to sell the product for the sake of selling the product. We want to make sure that the end user, which is the patient, when comes back for a follow-up, doesn't have the same value that they had at the beginning, because we provided an information and we also supported the doctor, the physician, for the right cure.
Same question, or it was for both? No, of course it's not a matter of money, neither big money. The big difference is not resolved just in between the walls of the company itself. It's a matter of culture and a matter of, in a way, of course, history as well. A matter of instructions and a matter of, whatever you have been taught at school, and the freedom that you enjoy in particular areas that is not the same in every part of the world. There is a reason why countries trail back and countries lead in innovations, or countries as small as Italy are, with the public sector in healthcare, as you were saying, are so good at it. For example, public sector, yes, it's important, I mean, when you go to a hospital to have decent treatments, but it's definitely also important how you get treated, by whom, and not just the skill of the people, but, as I was kidding before, with our heart and soul. Like, you go to a hospital and you're treated in a certain way in some parts of Italy, or most of them. Well, and this is part of our heritage, of our culture. And this reflects at the same time when you go into a company, and especially I'm talking for myself, long story short, when you enter an Italian company in Italy, the reason why we are so well performing is that everybody is underpaid compared to European countries, not Eastern European, but everybody is underpaid. So if you look at statistics of, not for the GDP, but There's a very interesting statistic where we are ranked fourth among the world because we are an economy in Italy that we produce everything basically at very low price compared to other countries that produce a lot of our same products but with higher price. It's just because our main workforce and our CFOs and our executives are paid way less. And this is, and also lawyers, yeah. You have to target different companies. But this adds up. So it's a matter of you go there into that company because you like what you're doing. So this is part of the culture. Although you're paid probably half of what a French is paid, the entry level, not even mentioning a Swiss. Everybody would go to work in Switzerland, right? Or Germany, if could given. But it's this environment that we created, and I don't know exactly why. I mean, it would be an historical lesson here, lecture, but I'm definitely not a good person to give. But it's our heritage and our culture that even reflects on business. And even if you're scattered around the world for a partial, a fraction of the money, I'm exaggerating here, of course, of your counterparts in whatever other country, you're still going to put your effort because it's just what we do. It's who we are. Is intrinsic in our values. Definitely, you can't really put them into just of the company itself. It's not a standard operating procedures. It's not how much money you have, definitely. What you're going to invest, even 1 billion euros, what can you do? Like, now I go back from China with some money in my pocket, but what am I going to invest in? Like, if I don't know what to do with it, I buy another house, and then another house, and then another house, and then next thing you know, boom, collapse. There's no culture in yet, possibly, in innovation and in critical thinking, and so you're doomed to trail. We would love to have not a fairer competition, but a stronger and stiffer one on core values such as innovation. That is going to be very cool, especially in healthcare. And honestly, for the sake of humanity, no matter what, like also, okay, I work for an Italian company, but if another Chinese one offers me a place, what do I care? Is my same culture, it resonates with me, but it's such a disparaging difference from Italian, but to any other company, to any other culture, that of course you want to stick with what you know, what you do, what you like, and it gives, if we are 60 million, it gives a lot of fruits.
I think, okay, we have time for only one question. Jason, you go. Try to keep it short so that we can close the panel because we're a little bit late.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So thank you for sharing. In terms of innovation, I'm quite curious. As just mentioned by you, pattern is important for this industry. But for example, for the COVID-19 testing, as mentioned by Albert, for local supplier, the accuracy is around 60% to 80%, and for your the product of your company can achieve to above 90%. So I'm curious that for the same task, if you find a way to achieve the more accuracy result, in this case, is that a pattern? The technology is a pattern to your company. So in that case, how does the other suppliers to achieve the same result without the conflict of your pattern, your company's pattern, and same for other scenarios? Yeah.
I will be super short because diagnostics do not have patents. There are no patents in our industry. When I was referring to 80%, it was not on the accuracy, but was the combination of the specificity, quantitative. So it is a combination of factors. It is not just simply 80% of the times it gives the right result. This is not what it means. But anyway, we don't have patents. Yes. So that means that regardless of the false or positive result, it is a function also of what stage the infection may be. So if you are early stage, the accuracy is very, very low because it's difficult to detect the virus if you just got it, basically. If you are advanced, then at that point the accuracy goes up to 100%. At a certain point, it's impossible to get it wrong. But the early detection is what matters. To get to your point, we don't have patents, but what is unique is the process, and the production process, the design of the product, the production process is something that it's impossible to replicate by just taking our product. You can study the liquid, but there is no way you can replicate the process. It's like, for example, if you have a cocktail, you can understand the ingredients of the cocktail, but if you don't know how it is made and which one of the ingredients is put first and is shaken or stirred, you're not going to be able to replicate exactly the same taste.
So with this, I conclude this panel discussion. So thank you to Alberto Donati and Michele Bianchetti for your participation. And thank you all for sticking with us until the very end of the 6th edition of Italian Design Icons. We have many plans coming ahead for 2022. So stay tuned because I promise we're not going to disappoint you. So thanks again for joining us and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.